neuro, don't be skeptic, hermetic, pathetic, analphabetic, forget old cosmetic, you need new poetic, aesthetic, eclectic, dialectic.
Hello, and welcome to the EuroWhat from WhatElseIsOn.tv. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm your host for this mini episode. That piece up at the top was Euro Nero by Rambo Amadeus, who represented Montenegro at the 2012 Eurovision Song Contest in Baku, Azerbaijan. We'll be checking in with him again in just a bit. So this week's episode is a mini update for what's been going on in the world of Eurovision since last week's episode. To get into the programming nitty-gritty a little bit, we'll be doing full episodes with Ben and Ryan and potential other guests every other week during selection season. On the off weeks, I'll be checking in, doing these mini episodes so y'all can stay in the loop and keep track of the nifty things we've got going on at our website, which is at eurovision.whatelsison.tv. That's enough inside baseball. Let's get on with the updates. Let's start with Armenia. So last week, Armenia finished releasing all 20 of the songs that'll be competing in this year's final. We're still waiting on the semifinal details. They haven't released any dates for that yet, but the final is scheduled for February 24th. And yeah, we have the full playlist on the contest page on our website, so you can see the link there. Listen to all 20 songs, come up with opinions. It's a pretty good mix this year, and Armenia usually delivers, so looking forward to seeing how this process plays out. Next on the list is Belarus. So you may have noticed last week, if you're keeping up with the news, that there was a little bit of lag between when we recorded and when the episode dropped, and all of the shenanigans that we talked about last week kind of came to a head. Sophie Lapina, who was one of the contestants who threatened to withdraw from the competition because of Alexiev's perceived illegal entry, she followed through. So her song is out of the running, and they're now down to 10 participants in the Belarus final. Along with that controversy, the group Shuma, with their song Shmarky, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, they also have kind of run afoul of the rules. Shuma's style is kind of in the borrowing from folk traditions, and some of that borrowing may have included some lyrics of an old folk song. And yeah, that could be a no-no. We haven't heard anything about that. But EuroWhat, another Eurovision fan site, has a story, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Happening just this week on Monday, Denmark has announced the 10 artists who will compete at Dansk Melodi Grand Prix. That is their national final. Of the list, the most famous person on it is somebody who's going by the name Sani, but back in the day, she went by the name Wigfield. She had a string of hits in the UK back 1994-ish, including the chart-topping song Saturday Night and a cover of Last Christmas. There wasn't any indication of success stateside, but yeah, I'm guessing if you're at all familiar with UK charts from the mid-90s of dance tracks, her work would probably be a little familiar. Dansk Melodi Grand Prix is scheduled for February 10th, and the songs that will be competing will be released the Monday before that, so on February 5th. And Denmark usually puts on a pretty good show, so this should be a pretty good final. Speaking of finals, France has finished their semifinal process, and they have their field for their final completed. 18 songs competed over the course of 2 weeks. That field is now down to 8. The final will feature an international jury of 10 countries, where their votes will count for 50% of the final score, and the other 50% will be determined by audience voting. So it's pretty standard final format. From the semifinals, Lasando Kuxi's Eva and Madame Monsieur's Mercy. They won the first and second semifinals, respectively. So they're probably the front runners at this point. But yeah, with a slightly smaller field and everybody on the same page, it really could be anybody's contest. So we have a playlist of all of the semifinal performances as well as the finalists of their semifinal performances on our contest page. So be sure to check that out. Also airing this past weekend, Hungary, they started their selection process, a doll. 10 acts performed, and 6 of those acts have advanced to the semifinal round. Most of the songs that are competing this year, there are 30 in total, they're available on Spotify, and we've got a Spotify playlist of all of the national final selections that we can find on stateside Spotify. So you can find that on our webpage as well. There are going to be 2 more of these preliminary heat of 10 songs. So 12 more will advance to the semifinal round, and it should be a pretty exciting process. As I mentioned last week, Hungary is one of my favorite countries in how they select their songs. So definitely recommend checking out their selection process if you can. Let's see. Also, this past weekend, Lithuania held their second heat. 12 songs competed, 6 advanced to the next round. As we've said before, this is the Lithuanian marathon, so there's a lot more process to go. There's still a couple more heats. I think there's about 26 more songs for this preliminary round. And then of that, I think 24 will be competing in round 2. So a long way to go in Lithuania. So we will keep you posted of anything interesting that happens there. Lastly, from this weekend, Romania held their first heat in their selection process. They're kind of doing the Swedish Melody Festivalen model, where it's a different show in a different city each week, with a handful of the acts advancing to a final, which will be held after these preliminary heats. In this first heat, 11 acts competed, with 3 of them advancing to the final. Among those acts, I believe the first one to perform was Alex Floria, who was one half of the duo that performed Yodel It for Romania at Eurovision last year. Yeah, he was not one of the acts to advance, despite the fact that his partner in that song, Ilinka, was on the jury. And yeah, she gave him a middling score, as did all of the other jurors. So I don't think there are any hard feelings between the two of them, but yeah, no obvious favoritism either. So I guess that's cool. But we'll have a playlist of all of the performances from Sunday's show on the webpage. Last in the sort of round robin of what's going on nationally, Serbia announced the artists that will be competing in their Eurovision selection process. This is the first time since 2009 that they've had an elaborate selection process. It's been mostly internal selections with Serbia the last several years. So 17 acts will compete. One of them includes Rambo Amadeus from the intro. And it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table, if it's going to be as conceptual as what he presented for Montenegro in 2012. There isn't a date yet for the final, but it's expected to be sometime in February. That's it for the round robin. As for what you can watch on web streaming this weekend, and we have links on our homepage at eurovision.whatelsison.tv to find all of these broadcasts. On Saturday, Lithuania's third heat will air at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hungary's second heat will air at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And France's final will air on Facebook Live starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Romania also has their second heat this weekend. That'll be on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, and the great thing about a lot of these streaming services is you'll be able to use it on Apple TV and Chromecast. They have applets that will connect seamlessly. You don't have to do the weird tabs thing in your browser. So yeah, and it's high quality broadcasts. So definitely recommend catching the ones that interest you, catching the ones that don't interest you, to see if they get weird.
That wraps it up for this week's episode of EuroWhat. Thanks for listening. The EuroWhat podcast is a production of whatelsison.tv. Our Eurovision news and research division specialists are Ryan Brazell, Mike McComb, and Ben Smith. Follow our coverage of the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest at our website, eurovision.whatelseison.tv. You can also catch us on social media, where we're at EuroWhat on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to contact us by email, we can be reached at esc@whatelseison.tv. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. You can subscribe to EuroWhat on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, or wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. While you add the subscription, leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We'll be back with more Eurovision updates, opinions, and general nonsense next week.